sometimes changes.
Right, well, we're all here.
The main people are here. The main people are
Important
here.
ones.
Right, okay, so I'll make a start. Yeah, so what I'm going to speak to you about today is new image and colostrum, but I'm going to mainly focus more on the product aspect of it with regards to enhancing performance in athletes and how colostrum can actually achieve that. I'm a chartered physiotherapist, registered podiatrist, and also an acupuncture practitioner. I didn't press that. Also an acupuncture practitioner. And I've been utilising acupuncture for many years to enhance performance in athletes. I've also published a number of research papers, so this is just a small handful of them, mainly utilising acupuncture in enhancing performance. So it's something which I've utilised acupuncture, but also looking at it with regard to nutritional aspects as well. And so basically what I'm wanting to go through with you is more or less how you can also utilise the nutrition in order to enhance performance. Now, what was interesting about the acupuncture aspects of it was on the physiological aspects as to how it actually achieved that. Now, we do have a product which also does it in a similar manner. So if we start to look at, from an athlete perspective, one of the key things that you're going to be going through is your body on a regular basis is going to be bombarded by bacteria, viruses, and one of the main ones as athletes, if you're training hard, key thing that you're going to start to get is upper respiratory tract infection if you're overtraining. So they're going to be one of the key things that's going to start to affect you. If you're under any kind of pressure, then that's going to start to affect your performance as well. So keeping yourself in good health is going to be pretty important on that basis. So if you start to look at key things that's going to affect you as an athlete or as the general public in that respect, any kind of deficiency. So if you're training hard, you're not getting the right supplements, you're not eating properly, that's going to also affect your body to recover from training sessions. Same again, your minerals, zinc, that's going to be quite important. Sleep's going to be a very important aspect. So again, that is when bodies start to recover. So in other words, if you're out there, you're training, your body does need to recover. Now, stress is going to be one of the key things. Cortisol is going to be something that your body starts to release when you get stressed. And what cortisol will do, if it's released, it's pretty much more your fight or flight, which is fine. But however, if it starts to become prolonged, now it starts to become a problem. So if it's released on the fight or flight, it's normally an anti-inflammatory. If you're stressed and it's constantly being released, now it becomes more inflammatory. So people who's under a lot of stress for long periods of time, now they're going to have more of an inflammatory reaction. Not just that, it's going to start to affect you on a mental basis. It's going to make you more anxious. It's going to also make you depressed. So cortisol over a long period of time isn't good. In addition to that, it's going to start to affect your immune system, make you immune suppressed. So as an athlete, if you're under a lot of stress, those kind of things is going to start to affect your overall performance. Now again, reactive oxygen species or oxidative stress. Now this is something which is quite big in athletes. If you're training hard or training in hot weather, that's where you're going to start to get more of oxidative stress that's going to actually start to take place. So it is important that if you're consuming something, that would need to be addressed with regards to antioxidants. So what can you actually do about it? Well, the main thing is going to be improving your immune response. The better your immune response, the better your recovery. So what you've got to bear in mind is it's fine talking about your immune response, but if you start to understand that and all the cells in the body that's actually responsible for that, that doesn't just defend your body from infection. What you've got to bear a look at is if you get an injury, it's part of your immune system that's going to heal that injury. So that's going to be quite important in that respect. So it also functions in many other ways in regards to that. Eating and drinking nutritious food, that's going to be Very, very important, particularly if you're performing. If you're not eating the right foods, then your body's not going to repair properly, and it leaves you more susceptible to picking up injuries and also getting your immune suppressed. Supplements is going to be huge. That's going to be quite important. That's mainly what we want to take a look at, is supplementation. A lot of supplements out there, but key thing is, are they of any real quality? So quality is important. So it's not just a case of taking supplements, it's the quality of the supplements in which you're actually taking which is going to count. Also improving sleep quality, better sleep quality, the better you are going to recover. So in other words, if you're somebody who's out there, you're training hard, and then you've got several bouts over several days or several weeks, then your body needs to recover. The better you sleep, better nutrition, the quicker you're going to recover, the quicker you're going to get back out there and able to perform. Also, exercising more, or in some cases, if you're over-exercising, you need to look at how you're going to actually go about the exercise. Now, what I'd like to take a look at is more the colostrum itself. Some of you may well sit there, because I remember the first time I was introduced to colostrum, yes, I'd heard of it, but I didn't quite understand what it really was. Spent many months, weeks actually investigating into it. The better you understand it, so is exactly what is colostrum. So colostrum is from the first milk in which you actually receive. So in the first hour, colostrum is actually within the mother's milk, whether it's a cow or any mammal, and come to that, it has the colostrum. Now, key thing is, so what you've got to bear in mind from an athlete's perspective is it contains at least 97 immune factors. So that's going to be quite important, because if you're training hard, you need to protect your body from picking up any kind of infection or anything like that. Especially, the amount of athletes I know where they're going for a rigorous training session, event comes up, about a week before the event, they go down with cough, cold, or whatever it may be. So now they can't compete, or if they do compete, they're not 100%. So that's going to be compromised in that respect. So you've got at least 97 immune factors that's going to be available in order to protect your body. Secondly, your growth factors. Growth factors is going to be very important. So they are going to be primarily involved is prevent you from getting an injury. If you do get an injury, it allows you to recover a lot quicker. Secondly, with regards to after training or during training, they're what's going to build your muscle mass. They're what's going to allow certain tissues to start to repair after it's been broken down. So once you've got your actin myosin filaments in the muscles, once you go and do a hard training session, they need to recover within a certain time period. That's pretty much what your growth factors are going to do. So therefore, it's going to strengthen the immune system, stimulate growth and repair of injured tissue, and also reduce inflammation. So again, if you train hard, that's pretty much what you're going to experience after a training session. You're going to start to get aches and pains. If you reduce the inflammation, it also reduces stiffness within the body. Antioxidants is going to be an important factor. So if it actually contains antioxidants, those antioxidants are going to allow you to perform to a higher level. Now, when I was saying, I'll come a little bit more onto that in a short while, because once you start to get down to the mitochondrial cells within the muscles, that is where your antioxidants come in, okay? Because that's where your reactive oxygen species are going to be dealt with in order to allow you to perform that much better. It also contains vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, D and E. They are naturally found in colostrum. So it's not added to it, they're already in there. So it's packed with antioxidants, packed with immunoglobulin, packed with growth factor, all naturally found within there, in addition to minerals. Okay, so you've got your zinc, magnesium, selenium, all naturally found within colostrum itself. Now, it's also being pointed out with regards to colostrum. So a study was actually undertaken in 2021. And if you start to look at this study, it's a systematic review. So in other words, if you're looking at different types of study, you've got case studies, you've got clinical trials, you've got randomized controlled trials. So they start to, go up the rankings there. Then you've got what you call a systematic review and a meta-analysis. So that's kind of your more higher ranking papers. So this was a systematic review and meta-analysis that was actually undertaken on at least 145 papers. At the end of that systematic review, looking at different nutrient supplements, they came to the conclusion of colostrum is the single most important food in the world.
Wow.
Yeah? Now that's a bold statement, but when you start to think about it and you start to understand what colostrum is, and you go out there and make your own investigation with regards to colostrum and what it actually does, if anybody can give me a different food source that's better than that, I'd be interested. Yeah? So just to put it bluntly, in regards to it's the first source of food any human animal is going to receive. Yeah? And it's for good purposes, because without that, the body can't develop. Yeah? So it's got all those immunoglobulins, all those growth factors. That is where the body starts to develop. It's your precursor for your muscle development, your precursor for your immune system, your precursor for the nerves, blood vessels. So all those growth factors there, epithelial growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, all those is what initiates nerve regrowth if it's injured or if it's not existent. It's also been shown that if a calf does not receive colostrum in the first 6 months, chance of its survival is significantly reduced. Yeah? And that's why they also puts out that breastfed children much healthier than non-breastfed. But if you bear in mind, you may well sit there and think to yourself, well, the ones on formula does fine, yeah, but that's got colostrum in the formula. That's the main active ingredient. So once we start to look at athletes and you start to look at your upper respiratory tract, it's quite prevalent in athletes if they're training hard, particularly at this time of year. So it has actually been shown that those that take colostrum, there's a significant increase in the activity of neutrophils. If you're not familiar with what those little things are, when you get an injury, they're the first thing to the site of infection. Yeah? So they're there to defend your body against infection. Yeah? So that's pretty much more your colostrum. Those who's on colostrum significantly increase the activity of neutrophils. In other words, it's boosting your immune response pretty much straight away. Not just that, once you start to look at your different immunoglobulins that's actually in colostrum itself, you've got your immunoglobulin A, that provides defense against inhaled and ingested pathogens, so pretty much anything with regards to lungs or your mucosal membrane. So that's going to be in and around the mouth, nasal cavities. That's where you're going to find your IgAs. If you look at your immunoglobulin E, now anybody who gets things like asthma and what you call it, hay fever, or allergies to dust and things like that, that's pretty much where immunoglobulin E comes in, and that can start to boost in that respect. IgD is more your antibodies, and same again your IgG. IgG is the most prevalent one. That one will pass over the placenta into the child. Yeah, so that builds up your actually antibodies and protects you from viruses and things like that. So again, they're pretty much what you're going to find abundant in colostrum in large numbers. Now again, coming back to Jones, this is one that looked at 53 male athletes who consumed colostrum. What they basically found was there was a significantly lower proportion of upper respiratory tract infection in those that actually consumed the colostrum. So, I mean, if you're looking at athletes, and particularly if they're overtraining, that's one key thing that they're going to be susceptible to is immune suppression. Yeah? So a certain level of training will boost your immune response. But once you go over a certain level, like many of them do, then it starts to suppress that. And this is where colostrum comes in. And again, several other studies have also demonstrated that 10 grams of colostrum supplement per day was effective treatment in upper respiratory tract. Also, Cook demonstrated that was an increase in 79% in IgA, so that's in the salivary, in people who was actually taking colostrum. So you can see the benefits that those individuals will actually get, particularly in the immune response and upper respiratory tract infection. Women in sports. Now, you do find far more women overall than men will actually take supplements, and particularly in sports. And one key thing is if you've got women who's partaking in sport, and depending what the sport is, if they're like figure skaters, if they're like gymnasts, things like that, they've got a figure in which they've got to present. So therefore, they're not wanting to be putting any weight on. So in doing so, I mean, I know ballet dance is one of them. Some of those are stick thin in that respect. And in doing so, they can be malnourished in key areas. So it is important that they're consuming the right type of food to prevent things like osteoporosis setting in. Also, menstrual problems will be prevailing in women who's doing high endurance type sports. If they're doing endurance marathons and things like that, that will start to have key problems. Their ability to absorb things such as vitamin B and also iron is going to be compromised. So the better their stomach and the gut that's working, the less risk of them picking up problems, and particularly cardiovascular problems as well. So it is important that those women are eating the right type of nutrients. Same again, what's been shown is if people's training at a set level, that will also compromise the gut. So the heat, training in hot weather, that will start to come into what we classify as a leaky gut. So there's a number of things that will cause leaky gut: stress from daily life, pressure from performing during competition. So in other words, if you're a pretty high performing athlete, then people will have a certain expectation of you when you go out there and perform. So even though we may well see these athletes and they look pretty normal, which they should do, but however, mentally, we don't know what's going on in their head. And that's why things starts to happen with regards to that. Heat, stress from intense training, as I was saying, if they're training at a set intensity, that will start to lead to leaky gut. Okay? Training in hot weather, that significantly increases leaky gut. You can increase it up to 250%. Leaky gut symptoms in hot weather. Medication, again, that's going to start to cause it. And the good old oxidative stress, which is going to cause it. I mean, oxidative stress will cause many things. So if you're looking at cancer, if you're looking at a lot of conditions, peripheral neuropathy, all that will be evolving from your oxidative stress. Now, just go back one. So just coming on to that is, I'm not explaining to you what a leaky gut is as such. So if you take into consideration normal stomach functions, you'll have a semi-permeable gut lining. So generally all it's going to do is to allow nutrients to pass through. However, if you're stressed, training in high intensity, training in hot weather, that is going to start to allow other things to pass through. In other words, it's going to cause the gut wall to become inflamed, and now it's going to become permeable instead of being semi-permeable. So now you're going to get a larger proteins that's now going to start to pass through the gut wall, and also what's called as the good gut biome. While it's in your stomach, it's good gut biome. Once it passes out the stomach, it's bad gut biome, because now that's going to start to migrate its way around the body. It's going to start to affect joints, it's going to start to affect the brain, it's going to start to affect kidneys. In other words, it's in areas that it's not supposed to be, and your body's defense system is now going to start to attack that and start causing inflammation elsewhere. Okay? And that's where you're going to start to get pain, discomfort, and that's going to actually come about from there. Now, coming back to colostrum itself, this is one of the key areas in which colostrum will start to have its effect, because as athletes, you're going to need that nutrient. If your gut's not working properly, then your performance is going to be compromised because you're not going to get the right amount of nutrients. So that's going to be quite important. So if you look at key studies, such as Marchbank 2019 observed the effect of 20 grams bovine colostrum on intestinal cell damage. What they basically found that after 2 weeks, it prevented intestinal cell damage in runners. Okay? And these are going to be some key people, once they start looking at distance, that's going to start to get leaky guts. Okay? Another study that was actually done, as I said, this one's going to be more in temperature related. As I was saying, it can increase gut leakage by 250%. And that's only going up by 1 or 2 degrees. Yeah? So it's not like it's a huge increase in core temperature. And that can increase it by 250%. Those that was taking colostrum only increased it by 60 to 80%. So colostrum's not going to prevent the leaky gut if they're training at high intensity in hot weather. But however, you can see how much it's actually reduced it. But also the benefit of that is it'll also accelerate the repair of it. Yeah, so during the recovery phase, when you're not training, it will allow the recovery of the intestinal wall to be that much quicker. Now, that brings me on to oxidation species, but we're going to look at it mainly from an athletic sports perspective. Now, that brings us onto the mitochondrial cells. So your mitochondrial cells is what you classify as a powerhouse of any muscle. In other words, muscles are actually crammed with mitochondrial cells. Now, this is one of the key areas where I did a lot of my research, particularly with regards to acupuncture. So in other words, I've had athletes trying to get onto teams, squads, British squads. I've just stuck them with a couple of needles and managed to achieve that. Understanding how I achieved that physiologically is pretty much working within this area here, okay? Because it allows the body to release what you call kinitidine and glutathione. So these are 2 amino acids that will be floating around the body, but it allows them to become more active and it allows the body to release them at the right time. They're naturally occurring antioxidants. Now the key thing about colostrum, they've got the precursor to those 2 naturally occurring antioxidants. And also, they also has the kinitidine, which naturally occurs in colostrum. So, if you bear in mind, if somebody's training hard, what basically tends to happen then is the body cannot convert your pyruvate into energy. So what then starts to happen is hydrogen.
What was that?
I'm sure this thing you want.
Is it still working?
The thing is, I'm holding it.
Yeah. Power of colostrum.
Yeah. I'm assuming it was this. But anyway, yeah, but as I said, I just heard it click, and yeah. But as I was saying, is it will affect the immune function. And again, intense exercise is going to be one of the key things that's going to affect it. Yeah, because basically the body cannot convert pyruvate into energy and lactate into energy quick enough. So what you basically start to get is, most people think it's the lactic acid that causes the problem. It isn't. It's a hydrogen ion that starts to build up. That's where you're going to get that burning sensation. And that will start to build up. And then that's what's going to start to cause a stiffness. And then once that builds up sufficiently, it starts to damage the mitochondrial cell membrane. And then once that's damaged, it starts to damage the muscle. Yeah? And you're going to start to get more muscle damage that starts to take place. So, key thing is, you need more antioxidants. The more antioxidants, the less of a build-up you actually start to get in that respect. So if you start to look at colostrum and antioxidant, vitamin A, B, C and D, and also E, are naturally occurring antioxidants. Okay? So they will help in that respect, but coming on to, as I was saying before, is the essential amino acid, lysine and methylthiazone. Those 2 are precursors to your carnitine and your glutathione. Okay? And they are very effective within the mitochondrial cells. Okay, we've also got catalase, glutathione, peroxidase, and glucosylceramide reductase. These are quite important antioxidants, but to me, these are the key 2 you want to be looking at: your kinitidine and glutathione. These are 2 even more effective. What they basically do is they work on the mitochondrial cell. In other words, more or less, what you've got to basically look at is, look at your mitochondrial cell as being a gas guzzling 5 litre muscle car. Yeah? and then you go and tip something like this into it. Now it turns it into a little bit more of a hybrid. So what it basically does, it allows the cell membrane of the mitochondrial cell to be more permeable. That allows more glycogen to enter the cell. Then once it's in there, it allows it to burn it more efficiently. In other words, it just allows the whole thing to function that much quicker and lots more efficiently. So when I used to get a lot of my athletes coming back to me, and the key thing that they're telling me is, regardless of what the weather was, they could go longer, harder, and it was more the recovery. So what I used to do with, when I used to run a lot of my training courses on the effects of acupuncture, I used to demonstrate it to my students. So I used to break them down into 2 groups and just hammer them with exercise. Yeah? Just pure leg exercise for a good hour, hour and a half. Then once I've done that, I'd split them into the 2 groups. Half would receive the acupuncture, primarily based on releasing this into the system. The other half wouldn't receive it at all. First day wasn't too bad, but when they come the next day, that's when it got interesting. Because now they'd be asking their colleague to secretly stick them with a needle. Yeah? I think, I did it with a group of physios in Bulgaria, and I did it group with physios here and also in Malta. I think the most interesting group was the Bulgarian. I think they're more vocal. So yes, it was. I should have recorded the whole thing, which I did find quite interesting. But yes, you can start to see the effect of that. So it prevents the integrity, preserves the integrity of mitochondrial membrane, reduces the production of lactate and the ability of oxidate pyruvate in response to intense training. In other words, it significantly reduces the buildup of hydrogen ion. So if you bear in mind, if it's doing that, it means that those athletes can train hard, and they're not, just from that alone, they're not going to get as much stiffness straight away. But even when they do, and they're in the recovery phase, those 2 will still be working, converting, breaking down the hydrogen ions, and also the pyruvate, and taking it back into energy, converting it back into energy, and also clearing up the lactate. So the whole process will function that much quicker. Also preserving the number of mitochondrial cells. So what you basically start to see then is athletes can then go out, train hard, and recover quickly. And that's the biggest problem that most athletes are going to have. And particularly if you've got somebody who's got multiple events, that's the biggest issue. Football, that's where most of their injuries is coming from. And they're still trying to find, in football, the best thing to resolve that. Yeah? And that's where they go out, they train, and if you look at it now, they don't have much rest. They don't have much time for recovery because you've got too many leagues that they're involved in now. So it's just key players worth a lot of money sitting on a bench. And they're not actually wanting that. Whoop, coming back. So coming back onto your DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. After 24 weeks of bovine colostrum, only 6.4 grams per day. On elite female basketball players, what they basically found there was level of creatine kinase, if you're not familiar with what that is. As the muscles break down during training, that's what's pretty much what is released, is your creatine kinase. It's more so the less of that, the better. Okay? And what you basically find is colostrum actually lower the levels of the creatine kinase. Okay, significantly reduced it compared to the control group. Same again, if you compare it with whey protein, so you're going to find many athletes. That was an interesting conversation I had with my swimmers. Do you take whey protein? He goes, yeah. I said, oh, you need to be on this. I'll be interested to see how they get on once they start to swap over. But if you start to look at whey protein, so many athletes are actually taking whey protein, mainly for muscle strength and mainly for recovery. But once you start to look at colostrum and compare the two, you're finding overall colostrum starts to outperform it. Compared to 6-week, bovine colostrum and whey protein, 3.2 grams per day. And these were football players. What they basically found was bovine colostrum whey protein supplement quickly speed up the recovery process. However, what they basically found was the colostrum group. Now, normally if somebody starts to get delayed onset muscle soreness, Well, the biggest problem that they have is muscle strength. It takes too long to come back. Yeah. However, what you basically found with the colostrum group, they had a faster recovery of explosive power. In addition to that, they had reduced levels of interleukin 6. If you're not familiar with what that is, interleukin 6 is an inflammatory, so it's pro-inflammatory. The less of those you've got, the better. Yeah. So therefore, it reduces inflammation. If you've got a reduction of inflammation, you've also got a reduction of stiffness. And you're going to find most people are going to complain about stiffness as opposed to pain. So they'll be in pain, but stiffness is going to be your biggest restrictor. In addition to that, they had also your creatine, lower levels of that as well. In other words, that's indicating they had less muscle damage. Okay? So as they're training, there was less muscle damage that was taking place. So now you can see those individuals would recover a lot quicker. Yeah? So in other words, what you've basically got in comparison is your bovine colostrum allow them to train hard but recover quickly with less muscle damage taking place. Here's one if you start to look at, again, athletes where they're doing consecutive training on consecutive days. If you start at the beginning of the week and you've got a really hard training session, by the end of the week you start waning because of the intensity. You've got 5 consecutive days, you start to hammer out. By the time you get to the end of the week, you're going to be pretty tired. So in other words, you don't expect to, what you did on day 1, to be able to smack it out on day 5. Here, what you basically got is they're taking 10 grams of bovine colostrum. Now, what you basically found is after the 6th week, so in other words, they've been taking it for 6 weeks, after the 6 weeks, their performance on day 5 was just as good as what it was on day 1. Okay? So what it's basically showing you here is they could go out, they could train hard, each training session, and start to recover very quickly from those training sessions. If we look at cyclists again, what we're looking at the whey protein and colostrum, but what they're basically looking at is what's the difference between 20 grams and 60 grams in regards to that. So I'd also like to see what's the difference between 10 grams and 20 grams. That'd be quite interesting to see if there's any difference overall. Now, again, performance improved more in the colostrum group, more than the whey protein group. However, there's no difference between 20 and 60 grams overall. Okay. Now, if we start to look at, with regards to gym session, strength-wise, 22 athletes, 20 grams per day, 8 weeks. What they mainly find, now this is quite interesting because what they basically found is a whey protein group. So you found body mass increased with the whey protein group, but mainly due to an increase in fat. However, once you look at the bovine colostrum, there was just a pure increase in pure lean muscle. Overall, there's no significant difference between grouping muscle strength. Now, it's important to take that into consideration because the main thing is, if, as I was mentioning to you before, if you've got key athletes, if you've got a runner, you've got a cyclist, most athletes do not want to put weight on. They want to build muscle, but weight is the last thing they want to put on because you've got to carry that. That's going to slow you down. So that's why you buy a bike, the lighter that bike, the more expensive that bike is. Yeah? Same again, if you're running, you're finding the lightest trainer if you're doing it over distance. It's all about weight. Yeah? So that does make a big difference with regards to that. So where you're finding the bovine, the whey protein, weight's going on. Bear in mind, the weight that's going on is fat, subcutaneous fat, not lean muscle. So that's the key difference between the two, again, in regards to that. So once you start looking at running performance, again, 60 grams, what the basic found is after 4 weeks, no significant difference between whey protein and colostrum. But however, after 8 weeks, what you basically found was the colostrum group showed great improvement in distance covered. Yeah, so again, outperforming your whey protein. Here, again, another study, what they're mainly looking at is aerobic performance, peak vertical jump, peak cycle power, and lactate anaerobic work capacity. Again, no difference after 4 weeks, but actually following 8 weeks, the colostrum group showed a significant improvement in vertical jump power and peak cycle power compared to the whey protein. Yeah, and you're going to find more athletes are going to be on the whey protein than anything else for building muscle strength. So that's pretty much what they're going to be taking it for. When you look at performance again, 8 weeks of 60 grams, mainly on elite hockey players. What they're looking at is more sprint, and what they found a significant improvement in the 5x10 meter sprint in favour of the bovine colostrum. Significant increase in vertical jump height. Both groups were in both groups, but however greater in the colostrum group. Now, I just want to point out something here. There was no significant difference between groups. But I just want to just jump onto that, because once you start talking about sports, so here we're looking at stats, but once you start applying that to sports, so let me just give you a no significant difference between groups. Even though, from what they've put, the bovine colostrum was greater, but on a statistical analysis, there's no significant difference. So I can give you a number of studies that I've looked at during my time of doing research, and I'll leave you to do the calculation. So if I look at a study that was done by Dylan, and it was on 20k cycling. So they're doing time trial 20k. So you had an acupuncture group, and then you had a control group. Now, no significant difference overall between the groups in performance, but however, the acupuncture group finished 1 minute faster than the control group. I say put that into the Tour de France. What difference does that 1 minute make? Yeah? That is like a huge difference. So even though statistically there was no significant difference, even though they finished a minute quicker, but you put that into a race situation, that 1 minute could be the difference between coming first and last. Or you could be about 20, 30 down the line, that's crossed that line before you during that minute. Yeah? So you've got to, analyse it on the basis in which it's actually done. So do take that into consideration. Now, also coming back there, it's more like the chap that I was telling you about, my swimmer. He wants to take 4 seconds off his time. I mean, 4 seconds don't sound a lot, but 4 seconds in a swim race, that is a lot. Yeah, that's winning or losing, simple as that. Okay, first, second, or even third place. So here you've got effects of colostrum, enhancing muscle strength. Here, what you've basically got 8 weeks, bovine and whey protein. Colostrum group significantly increased leg press strength compared to the whey protein, but however, in things such as your bench press, lean tissue mass, bone mineral content, and cognitive store, no significant difference between the two. Another study where you start looking at muscle strength, examined 8 weeks of bovine colostrum, whey protein, and in comparison, tissue composition was greater in the bovine colostrum compared to the whey protein. Now, with regards to maximum velocity contraction increase in trained and untrained arms in both groups, again with no significant difference between the group. But however, as I tend to point out, one of the key things that you've got in your colostrum group is your insulin-like growth factor. So once you start talking about repair of tissues, this is going to be one of the key things that's going to allow the muscles to develop. So once you've trained a muscle, the key thing that you're going to start to do is to break down your actin myosin filaments. Normally it takes, depending on how hard your training session has been, it normally takes either 24 hours for a moderate training session. A more intensive training, you're talking 48 to 72 hours before those actin myosin filaments starts to get back up to its normal level and then make that compensation so that you can start to improve. It's going to be insulin-like growth factor that's going to be part of the primary responsible for that and allowing you to recover. So in other words, and that's normally packed out in your colostrum. Okay? So again, as I said, it helps to increase muscle gain by increasing the growth of muscle cells. Now, once you start looking at the World of Doping Federation, this is some things which people have come and asked me about this, your IGF-1. Now, the key thing is, it has got the IGF-1, it's on the website. I took the time to go and have a look to see what it was all about and what everybody's saying, oh yeah, it's banned, you can't because of this. Now, the doping site mentions it, that's it. They don't say it's banned or anything like that, it just brings it to your attention. There have been about 2 or 3 studies which points out you're going to have to be consuming some serious amount of colostrum to even get it anywhere near what it would be classed as illegal. Yeah? So in other words, it's based on the testosterone that the body would actually release. Yeah? But you're not consuming enough quantities of colostrum for that to be of any concern to the doping agency. So if you have got athletes, and that's where they kind of just latched onto that, just point that out. And like I said, there are a number of papers that's out there. If you're looking at repair from injury, helps improve muscle regeneration in injured muscles, promotes bone and tendon healing, increase collagen production to aid muscle healing and regeneration. Your fibroblast growth factor, particularly once you start looking at angiogenesis, that's introduction of new blood vessels into injured tissues. Also, so it helps to accelerate the wound itself and allows it to heal a lot quicker. Helps elicit cardioprotective effect on the heart. Improves epithelial repair, so that's going to be pretty much of the lungs and also any epithelial cells of the skin. So again, it'll accelerate any kind of repair of that. And also, once you start to look at nerves, repair of nerves, any kind of nerve injuries or anything like that, then that's going to be quite important with regards to that. And if you are somebody who's building muscle, normally you also get new verbs that starts to build into those muscles as well. Lactoferrin is packed out in your colostrum, again with regards to tissue repair, so that's going to be pretty important on that basis. So that brings us on to my tin of colostrum here. Then we bought my bag. My empty colostrum. So yeah. So that brings me on to colostrum. Now, the colostrum that I'll be talking about is New Image. The company is called New Image. I'm not going to spend time talking about the company itself because we don't have enough time, but there's a lot of information that we can send in your direction in order for you to learn more about the company in itself, and also about Greg Clegg, who is the director of the actual company. But the main key things that I want to point out is the alpha lipid. Now, once you start looking at colostrum itself, it's got its trademark of alpha lipid. So it's just more or less to explain exactly what that is, because I've looked and I've not found any other colostrum available that has the alpha lipid. So it is important. The alpha lipid is what protects the colostrum. Yeah? So it's like a nanoparticle. So if you're not familiar with what a nanoparticle is, it's something that will allow key elements to get to its target. Yeah? So that's pretty much a nanoparticle. In other words, this needs to get to the small and large intestine in order to do what it needs to do. As a child, if you was to take colostrum as a child, the stomach of a child, the acid in there is not harsh. However, as an adult, which is how you're going to be as you're taking this, the acids are going to be that much harsher. So in other words, it's going to cause a lot more damage to the colostrum before it gets to its target. That is the purpose of the alpha lipid, is to protect it until it gets to the target. So what you've got to take into consideration, anybody taking any other colostrum, and if it's a lower quality or quantity of what we've got in here, then a lot of that's going to be damaged before it even gets to where it needs to get to do what it needs to do. So it is important to bear that into take that into consideration. So all the key thing is, as I was saying before, it boosts the immune response, improves gut health, so that's going to be quite important. Supports the teeth and bones, also aids in healing and repair, as we've mentioned, improves tissue, muscle, and also the heart, and also supports healthy aging. One of the key things also is your insulin, like growth factor, and your fibroblast growth factor. Those two key things. As you get older, your muscle will naturally start to reduce. Yeah. Now it has been shown that your insulin type growth factor and also your fibroblast type growth factor tends to reduce that from happening. So again, it helps to keep the body toned, particularly in the older individual, never mind the actual athlete himself. Now, the other key thing that I'd like to point out with regards to the colostrum from New Image is it's got a stamp of approval from Taiwan. Yeah? So again, if you can find me another health product that's out there that has got a country stamp of approval, then I'd be interested to know. Okay? So that's, so again, it's more prevalently used over in Taiwan than it is in the UK. It's only recently touched down in the UK. So again, they're happy with the product, that they've actually given it their stamp of approval of quality in itself. Now, the other key thing to bear in mind is I have looked online, and one of the main things that I've seen when I've looked online with regards to the cows. Now, this comes from New Zealand and do have more stringent regulations over there in compared to the UK. Now, when I've looked at other colostrum online, they're saying that their cows are cow-fed. Now, after coming from Northern Europe, as some of these colostrums are, when it gets to the winter, it is cold and it's got a lot of snow on the ground. Whereas New Zealand, temperatures over there, in the higher grounds, yes, it may well get to frost, freeze, things like that, but in the lower ground, 10 degrees maximum is what it actually drops down to, which is much warmer than the UK climate. So yes, those cows can be out in the field and fed all year round. Same again with regards to the veterinary certificate. It's not packed with, the cows aren't injected with antibiotics, and same again, it's not got any hormones in there, okay? So again, if you've got your cows coming from America or somewhere like that where they're heavily pumped with hormones, then you're not talking about those can be passed on in the milk, and if you're consuming it, then you can be starting to get some of the effects of the product that's pumped into the animal. So that's going to be quite important to take note of. Same again with regards to the production of it. Well, the main thing is this comes direct from the factory. In other words, the manufacturers, the people who supply it, it comes from them straight to you. Most of, well, if not all, of the other ones that you'll see online, it'll come from, the colostrum is actually manufactured elsewhere. It goes to one factory, they'll add whatever they're going to add, produce, put their label on it, and then it's sent to another place, which will be a supplier, and then they'll distribute it out. Okay, so it's probably passed through several hands before it's actually going to get to yourself. So therefore, you're not fully aware of what's actually in the content. So that's going to be quite important in that respect as well. And again, as I was saying, is it's done to pharmaceutical levels. Yeah. So if you look at over here in the UK, food is regulated to a certain level, but it's not regulated to the same level as pharmaceutical. Yeah, so you look at drugs, they have a lot more regulations than what it does when it comes to food. This is regulated to pharmaceutical levels, okay, which is quite important. So in other words, the regulations on this is going to be much higher, okay. Same again, if you look at the patents and trademarks, at least 172 trademarks on the actual product itself, okay. So, the other key question is regards to the effects. As I've gone through and demonstrated regards to colostrum and the effects of colostrum, the benefits you'll actually get as an athlete, that's the question you also need to ask yourself. Is what you're taking, do you feel the benefit? So that's going to be important, as opposed to just taking it for the sake of taking it, or do you feel the benefit? Now, I've taken it, and I've also noticed a difference of myself going to the gym. I also know of other people who's taken it, and they've also reported benefits once they've actually going to the gym. So that's going to be quite important with regards to if you're actually taking the supplements do you notice any difference, any changes in what you're actually taking? Or you're just taking it for the sake of taking it? I was taking Active for Men for 3 years. And I got to a point where I thought, you know, am I getting any benefits? And that's when I decided I was going to be looking for something else. And that's when I started to take your new Image Colostrum. Now, that also brings me on to the quality, as I was saying beforehand. Now, that's quite important, is the quality, because the quality is going to dictate as to how effective it's going to be once you start to consume. And I know many people don't spend to take time on the quality. One of the key things is if you start to look at a lot of the health advisors or nutritionists online, well, the first thing they say to you is you do not buy your products online. Unless you know where it actually comes from. You don't buy it online. Why? Because it can have a lot of things in there that you don't actually know. Okay? So don't always turn around to you and say you need to purchase it from somewhere that you know. So I went into, once I had this and I wanted to do my own investigation into colostrum, I went into Holland and Barrett's and asked them about some colostrum. They made it quite clear to me is the only place you're going to buy colostrum, because it's not available in the UK, is online. Okay, so Holland and Barrett's didn't sell it, and they were making it quite clear you can only buy it online. Fortunately for us, it is now available in the UK. Okay, so it can be distributed right from the manufacturer right to your doorstep here in the UK. So it's just recently launched in the UK. So that's going to be quite important, to be aware of that, is once you're looking at online. So if we start to compare our colostrum to what you can actually purchase online. So I'll get you to do your maths, some of your mathematicians out there. So just to point out is a tin of colostrum from New Image, you'll get 450 grams in a tin. Okay, per serving, it's 16 grams per serving. Okay, but most important thing I'd like to point out is you also got the alpha lipid that's going to protect it, so that as you start to take it, it protects it as it gets to its destination, and then it can do what it needs to do. So just a couple in which I've looked at online is this one here, where what you basically got is 60 grams of colostrum. Now, if you was to purchase this and you went and purchased it outright, then it's going to cost you around about £60 and some change. Okay. However, if you take your membership, which would be £20, which will give you an annual membership, then it's going to cost you £45 and some change. Okay. Now, what you've basically got here is, if you was to just purchase this one outright and you didn't take the membership, it's going to cost you £29.99. Okay. Now, if you took their membership, then it's going to be £16.99. But however, you have to automatically have a pack each month without fail. The key thing here is you're only going to get 2 grams per serving. You're getting 16 grams per serving. Big difference. Okay? I've not seen any research on 2 grams and the effects of 2 grams per serving. So that's going to be something to bear in mind. Secondly, if you was to go out and purchase your 450 grams, it's going to cost you £129. This is costing you £45. So you're talking 3 times the amount. And it's got to be packed with something else, because you're only going to get 2 grams per serving. Okay? Compared to your 16 grams. So I'll let you do the maths on that one. So again, you've only got 30 days in that. Now, bulk, those of you may well be sitting there that may well be taking your whey protein. Now, bulk is a big supplier of whey protein, and many people's taking the bulk in that respect. Here you've got 500 grams, which is a good 50 grams more than what you're going to get in here. Okay? So again, I'll get you to do the maths on that one, but only you're going to get 10 grams per serving, where you're getting 16 grams per serving here. Both going to last you the same time period. £45, 109 to £98.99. Okay? So again, you pay more than twice the amount to what you're going to pay here. But here, if you read on and look at the bulking added, what's added to it to bulk it out, so that's why you're only getting your 10 grams. You got may contain eggs, soya, cereal containing gluten, so if you're gluten intolerant, you can't be taking this. Okay, fish. So again, if you're allergic to shellfish, still can't be taking it. Okay, crustacean, mollusk, and several other products that's added to it. So these are the bulking agents that they're actually putting in there to make it up. So as I say, it's normally the colostrum arrives, and they're going to do like, I shouldn't be saying this, but like drug dealers, they're going to break it down and add a few other additives and then send it back out there. So that's pretty much what you're getting. Hopefully Bulk's not listening in and like me coming to get me. But anyway, last one is, again, you've got your APE, colostrum powder, 150 grams. But already that 150 grams, you're paying £47, where you're only paying £45 here. Okay? In addition to that, 16 grams per serving, 3 to 5 grams. Okay? Huge difference. Okay? So, if you was to go and get your 450 grams, it's going to cost you £140. Yeah? More than 3 times the amount to what you're going to get here. So here you get your poor cholesterol. There you're getting something that's packed out with something else. And then you don't know what else has actually been added to it. So you do need to be careful, as you say, when you go online and buy something, you don't know exactly what you're actually getting. So this is the, for those of you who may not want the colostrum powder, but this is their gold standard. Your supplement, or should I say your capsules, does not have, here you're going to get 16 grams. You're going to get much less in your capsules. But there, it's there for if you're not able to get your powder. And some people not going to tolerate the powder, and they might feel better taking the capsules. But however, you're not going to get the same amount per serving in that respect. Particularly at this time of year with regards to boosting your immune response. So here, particularly if you're training hard and you've got an intense training coming on, or you know you're around a lot of people or colleagues that's going to be coughing and sneezing around you, you've got your immune fort, which helps to boost your immune system. Again, studies have actually shown that it's been effective against things like the SARS virus, influenza, and also respiratory infection. Now, I've not taken any of the weight loss products, but some of you may well want to look at losing weight. I do know of people who's actually taken it, and they've found one key thing is once you're losing weight, is getting hungry. And that's one of the main things that key people is going to be fussed on is getting hungry. And it's been shown that those that's been taking it, hunger isn't a key factor. So obviously they'll be able to lose the weight that they want to lose without having to get hungry. One of the key things, it provides 40 grams of protein per day, up to 66% of your daily protein requirement. That's also packed with at least 22 vitamins and minerals. That normally is combined with your Fibre Max. So if you look at your recommended daily dosage of 40%, also 100% natural supports healthy gut and the digestive comfort. So again, the two combined, it has been shown to be quite effective in regards to helping people to lose weight or keep the weight down. Particularly if I look at when I was competing, that was a factor. You've got to go for your weigh-in. So you'll be doing all sorts to get your weight down in order to go for weigh-in prior to competitions. Now, normally I find if I'm doing a lot of training myself, particularly if I'm doing a lot of endurance, long distance bike or runs or anything like that, especially this time of year, I tend to go more off-road, longer runs, because I'm coming off the bike, too cold. And I do find myself, I hit a certain time of day when I'm in work, I normally can survive up to about 10 o'clock, and then I find I'm needing food. and I can be nibbling, and in some cases I'm not nibbling anything healthy. I'm just wanting to put something in my mouth, and as fast as I've eaten something, I'm still hungry. Makes no difference. But however, I've been taking this in clinic, and I found it's been quite helpful, reducing the amount of nibbles, as I put it. So yes, as long as I consume it within a certain time period, then I'm fine. The same again when I'm at home, particularly if I'm in office, kitchen's just there, and it's quite easy to go into the kitchen and start picking things up and putting it in your mouth. Whereas if I've taken that, particularly after a training session, it significantly reduces the need for me to go in there and start wanting to nibble. It's got, I think it's 20 grams of protein, and again, it's got your 22 essential vitamins. So again, it serves as a, something you can, to help you to reduce snacking during the day. Right, so I'm just going to play you a very short video clip. So this is just mainly, as I say, the key thing is colostrum was first used in Australia and New Zealand. This is pretty much where it more or less evolved from, where it was made available to the public. And in that case, you have a lot of their athletes that's actually utilising it over there. So this is more of a news clip that was actually taken from over there that I just want you to take a look at, just to reinforce what I've actually been going through with you today.
There's nothing as good as mother's milk, an old saying.